You've watched him on television for over 3 decades. Now he's on the radio with Steve Bruneman, Calvin Johnson, and Trey Harris. Welcome to Relationship Roundtable.
Hello again, everybody, on this Sunday afternoon. Great to have you along. On the outside, a little warm but nice here in the great cities of Dallas and Fort Worth, Texas. We're going to be here till 6 o'clock tonight. Calvin has the night off, but he'll be along hopefully next week. Trey and Steve alongside, and we are really excited tonight because we have one of those people you get. Well, I guess you can actually call him a legend, iconic. You pick out the adjective that works for you best, and we'll just kind of fill in the blank for you. But I'm talking about a fella that is most impactful, most inspirational, certainly most influential, and he has touched the lives of a lot of folks, not only here in North Texas, but for that matter, all around the world. His name is Ken Cooper. That's right, Dr. Ken Cooper. He is the founder, I think, best put, of Aerobics. If you think back to where you might have been in March of 1968, if you happen to have been here at all. It's a long time ago. Next year, it'll be 50 years. That's right, half a century. And it was at that time that he coined a word and came up with something called aerobics. How am I doing so far, Dr. Cooper?
Scott, you're doing great. And thank you for being on
Well, it's great to see you. I can't believe it's 50 years.
Hard to believe. You know, I actually coined the word in 1966.
All right.
And the book wasn't published in 1968. In fact, when the publisher, I'd titled one of the chapters in the book to prepare the manuscript, talking about cardiovascular pulmonary conditioning. I called it aerobics. Now, prior to that time, the only word you found in the dictionary was aerobic, meaning living in air, living in oxygen. So I took the adjective, added an S to it, made it a noun, entitled the chapter in that manuscript Aerobics, sent off to New York for the publisher. He said, that's called the book Aerobics. I said, people can't pronounce it. I don't agree with that. They can't spell it. Look what happened after the last 50 years, though.
Well, it's unbelievable, and we're just delighted to have you here. We've got some great stories to share with our listeners here today, but I think maybe most importantly is your latest endeavor. My gosh, and I don't think this is any big secret, so I'm not telling anything out of school, but that was 50 years ago. You were 36 at that time, which means, put the math together, you're 86 now and still is just vital as they get. I mean, you're right there. You're taking off for China here in a short period of time. We're going to tell them about what you've already done in the country of China. But for that matter, I think what I'd like to do is just go back in time. Again, with the expense of embarrassing you, I've known you a lot of years. I don't know, 35, 40 years. The aerobic center that we all passed umpteen times in our lifetime up there on Preston Road, the Institute and what have you, and now you're up in McKinney, and I mean, it just goes on, and we'll talk about that here in the course of the next hour. But you're, without a doubt, one of the most impactful people I have ever met, and one of the kindest, nicest people, and it's a real honor to call you a friend, and most importantly, we're delighted to welcome you here today. So thanks for being here.
Scott, I want to also thank you for the wonderful support you've given us in so many, many ways over the last 47 years we've been here in Dallas. And you never fail. Ask you to do something, to MC something. You've always been so wonderful. And that's one reason I'm here this afternoon.
Well, it's kind of, I guess the new expression now, or the last few years, is no-brainer. So we're delighted to welcome you. Well, let's go back to aerobics. You just kind of gave us a little preamble of sorts of where that all came about. That was back in the late 60s, 1968, March to be exact. But why did you do that? I'm trying to think of the country in 1968. Of course, I was a little younger than you at the time, but I'm trying to think what was going on at that time. I remember that was the year of the election of Nixon. And up against, that was Eugene McCarthy and who was it, Hubert Humphrey and some of those people. And we had all that was going on around the world. The whole world is watching. I remember it was a rock group that came out with some song. Remember, what was that? The whole world is watching. Do you remember that? You're a big music.
I do.
All the issues. I know we're all too young for that stuff.
I wasn't actually alive in 1968, but
oh, really? Put us over.
Jimi Hendrix had a big year that year.
Well, it was just it was a very tumultuous time. Drugs in the Haight-Ashbury era in San Francisco with the hippies in '68 and '69. So it was a very tumultuous time in our country. And here you are coming up with this word called aerobics and saying, "Hey, folks, it's time to stay physically fit. Make sure that you exercise. Watch the foods that you eat." And now here, 50 years later, you're really way ahead of the game because everybody, it's half the shows on this radio station are about physical fitness, right?
Exactly right. And the reason I really was inclined to write the book is the Gallup polls back in 1968 said that we had less than 24% of our adult population exercising and less than 100,000 joggers. Scott, when I ran the Boston Marathon back in 1962 for the first time, I placed 101st in the Boston Marathon. That sounds fantastic, but only 150 people ran it back in those days. So jogging was unknown and was dangerous. My book came out overnight, a great success, the book, and I got jumped on by the medical community. Because I was going back to my medical school days back in the 50s, we were taught that people past 40 years of age should never exercise vigorously, have a heart attack, and die. We told people once you have a heart attack, you must lie flat on your back in bed for 6 weeks, couldn't get up and go to the bathroom, have another heart attack. I recall distinctly telling people, if you live in a 2-story house, you have to move to a 1-story house. You can't walk down a flight of stairs anymore. And by sure told the men, let the wife carry the garbage out and the groceries in because women have fewer heart attacks. I mean, those were routine recommendations physicians were given to their patients back in the 1950s. So 1968, that concept was still very prevalent among my physician colleagues, and I would see titles in medical newspaper articles that said the street's going to be full of dead joggers as people follow Cooper's recommendation for exercise. That worried me, I'll guarantee, because the whole book that I wrote in 1968 was established working with 27,000 people in the Air Force, and that was a 2-year study we had in the Air Force, 15,000 exercises and 12,000 controls. That's where the data came from, but the average age was 28. I had no idea the number of people bought the book would be over 40 years of age. That's why I came out with a second book in 1970 called The New Aerobics. But again, what happened? According to those Gallup polls, we went from 1968 to 24% exercising. By 1984, we had 59% of Americans claimed to be exercising regularly. We went from 100,000 joggers in 1968 to 34 million by 1984. What happened? By 1990, was there an increase in deaths from heart attacks? No. We dropped 48% decrease in deaths from heart attacks for the first time ever during that period, that 22-year period. And we led the world in reduction in deaths from heart attacks. Only 3 countries had a comparable statistic: Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. In the summer of 1990, I was invited to speak behind the old Iron Curtain. I went to Moscow, Leningrad, Kiev, Russia. I went to Warsaw, Ustrom, Poland. I went to Budapest, Hungary. The reason I went over there is because from 1968 until 1990 in Russia had a 31% increase, Poland 36% increase, Hungary 40% increase, and the records were Romania with a 50% increase. Sure, they said, Dr. Cooper, it's because you're modern technology. We don't have balloon angioplasties and bypass surgery and coronary caries like you have, those expensive cardiac medications. I said, hold the phone, because it was clear that what made the dramatic change in reduction in deaths from heart attacks by 48%, increasing life expectancy by 6 years in that 22-year period, twice as much, 3 times as much we anticipate, is because people change their lifestyle. Only 1/3 of that reduction can be related to modern technology. 2/3 is because Americans changed their lifestyle. Who did? Baby boomers. 76 million people born between 1946 and 1964 led a health revolution we've never seen before, nor have we seen since. It came to a standstill in 1990. But what did they do? These things, number one, they quit smoking in great numbers. They dropped from 47% smoking down to 24% smoking. Next, they started identifying their high blood pressure. We have 60 million Americans that have high blood pressure. Only 15% were controlled, up to 55% control. They changed their diets. The middle-aged American male, 40 to 49 years of age, dropped his cholesterol from 234 down to 204 during that time. Tremendous change. They learned harmful effects of stress and how to control it. As I've said in my 60 years of practicing medicine, it's not stress that kills, it's where you handle stress. Exercise every day, here, 5, 6, 7 days a week, so I control the stress in my life and the exercise. Those are the reasons. That's why we need to get Americans aware of what they can do for themselves, as those baby boomers did for that 22-year period.
Steve, how about you? You've got a question for, isn't that amazing, some of the statistics he just shared with us?
Yeah, they just roll off his tongue. Like,
I know they do.
I'm sure he's quoted them thousands of times. But, Doctor, I do have a question, and this may take you back a little bit. Did you ever meet Jack LaLanne?
Did I meet Jack LaLanne? Jack LaLanne and Elaine LaLanne were 2 of my favorite friends. In fact, I was with him many times. We had him come to Dallas and actually speak once for us. And he put that big old glass container up in front. He put all the donuts and the things that we are supposed to eat. He was a classic. Great friend, amazing guy. Finally passed away at around 92 years of age. Did some phenomenal things. Great guy. And his wife is still, Elaine, is not past 90 years of age. He's still leading exercise classes out in California. So that brings back good memories, my memories of Jack LaLanne.
When you talk about looking back 50 years, as we said, next year in March, it'll be 50 years. And yet I just wondered, over those 5 decades, as you look back now here in 2017, do you think to yourself, we were spot on with this. We were spot on with that. I was a little surprised this happened, but you know what? This is just exactly what we thought was going to take place 50 years later, and here we are 50 years later. I just wondered what comes to mind. You say, we really got that. We thought this. We did. I just wondered how you look back at it. I mean, you've got to be so proud of all that you did at that time, and now half a century later, we're going, yep, that was it. He was right.
When I first moved to Dallas in 1970 after a 13-year career in the military, little room office and 2 employees, even my supportive colleagues said there's no way you can limit your practice in medicine, taking care of healthy people, and make ends meet. Look what's happened. Now we have a beautiful estate with 600 employees. We're all over the world. Why? You know, people ask me all the time, why have you been so successful? All these things that people have really predicted doom over those years. I hasten to say, number one, I'm very strong in my beliefs, and I believe divine intervention is the reason I'm here today. But number two is because of fantastic staff. I tell my corporate executives, my CEOs, you know, you're going to be just as successful as your staff makes it. And I attribute all the success really to the supporting staff I have. And number three, we've proven this now in published scientific literature that it's a whole lot cheaper and more effective to maintain good health and regain it once it's lost. We did a study called the Medicare study. We followed 28,000 people for a period of 25 years. They were 50 years of age, and they came to the clinic. Put them in fitness classification by the time on the treadmill, the top category, the bottom category, followed them for 25 years. And we found 25 years, age 75, those that were in good shape at age 50, midlife, that the cost of health care from 65 to 75 years of age was 40% less than those in the bottom level of fitness at age 50. That's published, Scott, in the scientific literature. But the final reason I think we've been successful is because if people realize they have a need, you provide a service, they get the results they want, they'll make you successful in any field. Those, I think, are the keys to success.
We continue shortly as we take a brief time out to make a little money, so to speak, as they come in. Trey's looking at me like, are we really? Yes, we are. Trey and Steve, I'm Scott Murray, and our special guest today till 6 o'clock tonight, the immortal, the legendary Dr. Kenneth Cooper. That's right, coined the word aerobics close to 50 years ago. And, of course, we've all come to know the Cooper Aerobics Center out there in Preston Road. More when we continue here on 570 KLIF.
Welcome back to the Scott Murray Show as the Relationship Roundtable continues with Steve, Calvin, Trey, and Scott.
521 is where we stand. We're going to be here till 6 o'clock tonight. Great to have you along on this Sunday afternoon. Dr. Kenneth Cooper is our special guest today. He is the founder and chairman of the Cooper Aerobics Center that, as I said at the top, we have all passed once or twice or umpteen times over there on Preston Road and thought, now what's going on back there? And I tell you, the first time that I got a chance to visit and get a tour of what does take place in there, it is a special, special place, saving lots of lives just by the mere information and literature that is shared back there each and every day. And, of course, as we said at the top, Dr. Cooper came up with the term aerobics. It'll be 50 years ago, March of next year, and thus the rest is history. And we've talked about exercise. We've talked about some of the things like that. But I know, Trey, you wanted to talk about lifestyle, too. And we're going to, a little later on here, talk about obesity, not only here in our country, but for that matter, all around this planet. Go ahead.
Well, how important is nutrition in the whole grand scheme of maintaining your physical body?
This is one thing I'll be elaborating on in the next rewrite of aerobics because, again, I thought if you exercised enough, you didn't have to worry about your diet, your weight, your cigarette smoking, whatever it may be. And I realized that was just the tip of the iceberg. And so by 1982, I really changed my concepts and ideas and said the total program consists of proper weight, proper nutrition, proper exercise, and now proper supplementation. That's 21st century medicine. We have, as a part of our requirement, being Cooperized. We have 8 different things we encourage people to follow. And we found, too, that if people follow this now, we have 96,000 people we follow for over 20 years, and they're living about 10 years longer than the national average when they come through our clinic and they get Cooperized, find a recommendation. And one of those 8 is the 5 is fine, 9 is divine. Number of servings of fruits and vegetables should be consuming every day. Average American adult, 3.1 serving. Average American teenager, 1.6. And that's one of the major problems we have. Nutrition is abominable in this country and in China, as you'll find out in a few minutes. And the major reason I've had this epidemic of obesity in the children in China is because of the fast food restaurants that are just multiplied unbelievably over in China. So what's our diet? Our diet, inactivity, stress, all these various things we try to control. And people getting Cooperized. We know that we can prolong lives, but Scott, it's not just prolonging lives, it's the quality of life. That's why the 19th book my son and I wrote was sort of Start Strong and Finish Strong. Square off the curve, live a long, healthy life to the fullest, and die suddenly. Here I'm 86 years of age. If I die tomorrow, all I can say is praise the Lord. I have had a wonderful life. Worked out in this hot sun this afternoon. I want you to know I worked out. Walked 3 miles before I came in this afternoon. Want to be sure I got my workout in today. But over the years, people have asked me, what's the key to success, physically, professionally, whatever it may be? I thought about that for years. And I thought, finally, discipline, highly disciplined. I like to quote one of the phrases, Proverbs 13:18, one of the translations of that in the Bible is, shame and poverty come to those who are not disciplined. You ought to pay attention to that. Discipline is what we lack in this country. Obesity is a lack of discipline, stress a lack of discipline, all these things. If we can change the attitudes in America, people become more disciplined and rely upon themselves for their health, not the government, not the physician, not the insurance company. Take responsibility for your health. It's lifestyle is going to save this country from enormous expenses. We spend twice as much money as anybody else in the world on health care right now, and we rank 43rd in longevity. So we're going the wrong way.
Boy, for sure. A little accountability and responsibility for just, go look in the mirror. That's the person that's going to control it all, right?
That's correct.
That's amazing. Steve, did you have another question you wanted to ask Dr. Cooper?
Well, first of all, I totally agree with discipline. If discipline could permeate our lives, we'd be married longer and more successfully. We wouldn't be obese, et cetera, et cetera. We'd probably more successful at our whatever business or jobs we have. Yeah, so you stated that you walked 3 miles today. Tell us about your regimen. I mean, you're 86, and I get worn out just listening to you, just trying to keep up with how fast you speak. I mean, it's amazing. I don't know any 86-year-olds to speak as quickly as you do. You're obviously in great shape. So tell us what your diet and exercise routine and regimen is.
And let me interrupt you first before Dr. Cooper talks. The very fact that you mentioned this, alluded to this earlier. It's unfortunate that people can't see. He's not reading all these statistics and all these things off notes. As you said, it's amazing. At 86 years of age, you're reciting those just as though you were reading them off a piece of paper. Those are off the top of your head.
I think your brain is probably half your age.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Really? Well, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead and ask your question again.
Yeah, just your diet and exercise regimen. I'm just curious what it is, or what it's been maybe the last 20 years or so.
Well, again, I do try to follow that guideline as 5 is fine, 9 is divine. I eat lots of fruit. I know frequently when I end up eating a Liberty Burger, my wife and I have a date. We'll be married 58 years this August, and we have a date on Saturday night, go to a movie, and then I've been seen at Liberty Burger. And people come, oh, Dr. Cooper eats something. No, I'm eating a turkey burger when I go to Liberty Burger. I want to make that point very clear. I eat very little red meat. I have skim milk for breakfast in the morning. I have my fruit for breakfast. I have a very light lunch. And I maintain my body weight. I weigh about 166 pounds. Now, from my story, I weighed 204 at one time when I finished medical school and internship and got fat because I couldn't work out. Being an athlete in high school and college, I made All-State in basketball in the state of Oklahoma when I was a senior. And I won the state championship in a mile run when I was a senior in high school and got me a scholarship at University of Oklahoma. But then in 1949, I finished high school, got into pre-med and then medical school. Later, I didn't have the time to exercise, so I gained weight. Because keep in mind, too, obesity is the most common manifestation of stress. That's another manifestation of stress. But to answer your question, though, my routine is I start early. I'm the first physician that gets to the office every morning. I've done this for years. I get up at 5:45. I'm at the office by about 6:45 to 7. For me, that's my quiet time, the first 30 minutes. By 7:30, then I start working on dictating results on patients and all that. At the end of the day, I even have my lunch brought to me. I don't have time to go over and get something to eat because I have so many requirements during the day. And I just see patients, but lots of interviews. I have lots of telephone calls and all that. But then invariably by 5:30 in the afternoon, I go work out at the center. Now, my goal at this time, I'm just walking. I broke my leg snow skiing, fractured my leg snow skiing back in 2004. I had to stop jogging after 40 years and 38,000 miles and marathons, ultra-marathons. But you just don't stop. You transition because we know that fitness is a journey, not a destination. I'll keep up the rest of your life. So what I did is I transitioned to walking. So my routine now is walking. But you got to walk fast. A study that I've referred to many, many times, it's well documented, that if you're 80 years of age, you people listening, if you're 80 years of age and can walk a mile in 17 minutes, that is 3.5 miles per hour on a treadmill, there's an 84% chance you'll live another 10 years if you're a man, 86% chance if you're a woman. So that's what I'm banking on. I've been walking that faster. My routine is covering my 2 miles at least 4 days a week on the treadmill or outside at about a 15-minute per mile pace. That's 4 miles per hour on the treadmill. So that's my goal. And the other thing, too, as I referred to earlier, I finished my workout by doing some circuit weight training. That's very important, not for muscle building, muscle toning. And by doing that, my strength is adequate in my extremities. I don't have to worry about picking up a sack of groceries, pulling my back out, as I was destined to do if all I was doing was aerobic conditioning and not doing a total body conditioning program. So that's quite a summary. That's what I'm doing at the present time.
Amazing. Trey?
So how old can someone be and still maintain this level of fitness? Is it possible to do this well past 90, well past 100?
I'm so glad you asked that question because one of my stars is Orville Rogers. He's been my patient since 1972. I know Scott's heard about him because this amazing guy not long ago, he won 2 gold medals running in a seniors track meet out in New Mexico in Albuquerque. And that's he now has 16 world records. Back 9 years ago, in one weekend, he set 2 world records in running his mile in 9:56, broke the record by a minute and a half, ran his half mile in 4 minutes and 18 seconds, broke the record by 30 seconds for men over 90 years of age.
Wow.
Now, since then, he's established 16 world records for men over 90. He's now 99 years of age, was featured on national television on Fox just a few weeks ago when he beat this 92-year-old man to the finish line by leaning forward and breaking the leg. So what is the capacity? We don't know what I see, and people call me all the time. I'm 87 years of age. He wrote me this past week, and he was competing in senior Olympics triathlons at 87 years of age. You want to tell me what he was doing? I think that we play down with the possibility of productive aging, not just existing. I'm talking about living. Orville Rogers is living to the final moment. I'm sure that if he would probably be embarrassed, but he's told many people this, that he was an airline pilot for 30 years, in the military for 6 years. And for 36 years, he told us that when he had a book signing the other day for him, and he told the group, he said, I never earned more than about $1.5 million in salary in 36 years with the service. But I've been happy after I retired from the Air Force, from the Braniff rather, I've been able to give away $34 million.
Wow.
That's
incredible.
Incredible story. And at 99 years of age, he's very happy. He's looking forward to the 100th birthday on the 28th of November. And by the way, he's a graduate of the University of Oklahoma, just like I am. We're kind of sorry what's happened over the past few days. But he and I are going up there on the 11th for Memorial Day. And TCU is playing OU at Norman.
Right.
And Orville Rogers is going to be featured as a patron of the day before 85,000 people at the halftime.
No kidding.
It's a true story.
Oh, that's fantastic. Fantastic. That's the voice of Dr. Kenneth Cooper. That's right, the founder and the chairman of the Cooper Aerobics Center. And we're going to be back with more and listen to him talk about something that's very, very, very cool, I guess, best put, because he's not only going to be here in the United States in the weeks ahead, but he's going to be traveling to a foreign country. And when you hear some of the statistics we're about to share with you, you will simply go, you are kidding me. That can't be, when we come back.
The Scott Murray Show continues. Join the conversation at 888-787-5543. Now back to Relationship Roundtable with Steve, Calvin, Trey, and Scott.
5:35 is where we stand on this Sunday afternoon. We're going to be here till the top of the hour, till 6 o'clock. Great to have you along. And if you're just joining us, you missed some rather intriguing information shared with us in the first 30 minutes by Dr. Kenneth Cooper. He is the founder and director of the Cooper Aerobics Center. And I think it's kind of cool and kind of neat and kind of whatever you want to call it, because he has been traveling all over the world for decades, but most recently has been over in China and has kind of a Chinese version of what we see each and every day up on Preston Road. It is called the Cooper Aerobics Health and Wellness Center, and it is located in Nanjing. That's right, in the country of China. Now, he has some rather lofty goals on what he'd like to do with this whole scenario. Quite simply, to save the world's largest population from epidemic obesity and adult-onset diabetes and bring it to good health by the year 2030. That's right, 13 years from now. Well, he's got quite a task in front of him, because listen to this. China, best put, is getting fatter, for lack of a better way to put it, and more sedentary, with nearly half of its people. How many is that? About 580 million, either a diabetic or at the tipping point of being. That's nearly twice the entire population of the good old U.S. of A. So he has headed off to China to, as they say, Cooperize the country of China. Bring us up to date. That's unbelievable. First of all, congratulations. That's kind of cool.
Thank you, Scott. It's a marvelous opportunity. You may have read the article in the newspaper that I had a commitment as an 18-year-old senior in high school here at Falls Creek Baptist Assembly up in southern Oklahoma. I went down and committed my life to become a full-time medical missionary to China. I don't know why I did that. I just felt the calling. Throughout the years, I had that back in my mind. I first went to China in 1988, almost 30 years ago, to give a presentation. Since then, I've been there 10 times. I've had a love for the Chinese people, and they've treated me wonderfully when I've been over there. So they finally, in 2010, I was over there speaking in Nanjing University, and I was there for a week, and they asked me to lead a walk run, which I do frequently in these foreign countries, and I led about 4,000 people on a 5-kilometer walk through the streets of Nanjing. Now, Nanjing is about 200 miles west of Shanghai. It's about 10.5 million people, so it's a very large community. I know I'd been speaking through the university students all week. I've been speaking through an interpreter. And so that morning, that Sunday morning, we had about 4,000 people. I wanted to walk 5K with my wife and myself. Now, that's 3.1 miles, as you probably know. Well, then they had about 4,000 people, as I mentioned, and I said a few words, but they wanted me to motivate the students, said a few words, and I waited for the interpreter to translate, and they said, Dr. Cooper, they don't need translation. They all understand English. 4,000 Chinese, primarily college students, all understood English. So for 10,000 Chinese studying English, we have 1 American studying Chinese. Keep that in mind, too. But they were intrigued with the concept. Nearby, they had this beautiful location. It was a resort area. It was actually built about 10 years ago by the Communist Party as a retreat for their top echelon, their top people. And it's in the mountainous area there near Nanjing. It's 40 acres in size, and it has 3 buildings. And the buildings were designed as follows. Number 1 was indoor tennis courts, 2 indoor tennis courts. Number 2 was a beautiful conference center. It has a accommodation of about 300 auditorium, and it has about 15 different concert rooms. And then they have a beautiful hotel overlooking a lake that's almost a quarter mile around it. So what our friend in Nanjing, one of the billionaire friends we have there, he acquired that property. Now, they must have paid $40 or $50 million, but were able to lease it long term, and he put $5 million into renovating the property. And now the fitness center, which was the old tennis courts, is the most unique fitness centers in the world. You saw some pictures of that in the newspaper today. There are 2 things no place else in the world that we have in our center there. That's called the Cooper Aerobics Center. And one is an indoor jogging track that is 16 laps to a mile. It's 100 meters, 16 laps to a mile. That goes up a hill. It's not like you see at our center, you run around an indoor track. It goes up and down a hill for that 100 meters. And the second thing, it has the largest indoor climbing column. It's not a climbing wall. It's over 4 stories high. And it's a wall. You can climb all 4 sides of it up to the top, and you can belay, you can fly, you can free fly off of it and all. It's amazing what they've done. They have equipment there like I've never seen anywhere else in the world. And then finally, the hotel is just unprecedented. I stayed in the presidential lounge or the presidential suite while I was there in my own hotel, which was quite nice. And look out the window on the 3rd floor, this beautiful lake and all the mountains. It's in a national park. It's surrounded by trees and mountains. It's the most serene, surreal experience my son and I have ever experienced. We had the meeting on the way over to Nanjing for the grand opening on the 21st of April. They asked me to come by Beijing first. Now, this is my umpteenth visit to Beijing to participate in what was called When East Meets West was a seminar. And at this seminar, I had the privilege of briefing the vice chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, a lady, and she spoke perfect English, and discussed the subject of Health Forum on Sport and Medicine Integration, Cooper Aerobics for a Healthy China by the year 2030. Think about that, Scott. They have invited us over to help them improve the health of almost 1.3 billion people by 2030. How are we doing that? Through our center in Nanjing? We're doing it this way. This is not a center like we had the aerobics center out on Preston Road. This is a training center. Our goal is to train people all over China. It's already happening. They come there for a period of 3 to 5 days for training in these very seminars. And we're going to be training personal trainers, like we have personal training programs at the Cooper Institute for years and years. Because personal trainers in China concentrate on muscle building and figure contour. We concentrate on cardiovascular pulmonary conditioning. Because keep in mind, you can be over-muscled just like you can be over-fat, and the heart can suffer either ways. It has to have the whole integrated type of exercise. Personal trainers. Number 2 is we'll have physical education teachers from all over China to come in, because we've been challenged by President Xi to bring and upgrade soccer programs in China in the schools. And I've got a very prominent soccer coach from Brazil is going to be joining us and working in that number 2 work multiplication teachers. This will span all over China. Number 3 with physicians. I've got one of the top cardiologists in the world who's Chinese who will be heading up the programs there to teach physicians the price of preventive medicine in China. They don't have any idea about that, what we're talking about. And the 4th group is corporations. The corporations in China, they don't feel any responsibility for their employees as far as worksite wellness programs, anything like that. That's a government responsibility. That's a major mistake. We can show clearly, as we have in America, that you get the corporation involved in a worksite wellness program. It reduces the cost of health care, reduces absenteeism due to disease, increases work productivity. You can't ignore that. You've got to appreciate that. And then finally, the 5th group will be for government people to come and be trained. That's happening right now.
That's amazing. Are you surprised at how receptive they have been to an American physician, even though your great history and what they have seen that you have done over the last 50 years? I kind of step back and say, well, this is a foreign country, and at times we go, well, gee, China, they're not on our side and that type of thing. But it sounds like they have just opened their arms and said, please, we welcome you. We're delighted to just take advantage of your incredible ability in all your knowledge and expertise.
This actually really began from the top down in 2013 when I actually met with President Xi in Henan, a big international meeting there. And he at that time was expressing interest in, primarily in 2013, he was expressing interest in the obesity problem of the Chinese children. When I spoke with the Minister of Health back in Beijing in 2012, and I said, sir, I've been coming to China since 1988. In Beijing in 1988 had dirt streets and military dump trucks and millions of bicycles, dilapidated third-world city. You go to Beijing now, they have 100-story buildings. They have super highways. They're riding motorcycles and motorbikes. They're driving Mercedes. They're driving Audis. They're driving General Motors cars. I found out the other day that in 1980, the poverty in China was 40%. Now it's 10%.
Really?
That much of an increase in that period of time. So along with that, you go to Beijing now, you see all these people, they're driving all these cars and all this, and they have a fast food restaurant every corner, and they're smoking cigarettes, smoking tobacco by 50% now. So they're beginning to see the handwriting on the wall. But in China, contrary to the rest of the world, they can say something in China, this is going to be done, it's going to be done. And so we have a mandate from the Chinese government to help them improve the lifestyle in correcting some of these things. So our program is going to be both educational and motivational and evaluation. A 4-step approach we've had successful here at the Cooper Aerobics Center and Cooper Clinic over the last 47 years is this. Evaluate first. Educate and motivate second. Implement programs that are safe, effective, and realistic. And number 4, reevaluate. That's what we're doing with our patients. That's what we're doing with fitness scrim testing in the state. That's what we're doing in China.
I'll tell you what, it's something special. I think back to Beijing. You talk about what it was like in 1980, and I think most of the world got a chance to see just 9 years ago, back in 2008, the Summer Olympics there, and we were all just in awe of some of the things. And you talked about some of the skyscrapers and the buildings and what have you. So it's a totally different culture than it was 30, 40 years ago.
In 1990, we had 13% of our children overweight or obese. And now we have 33% of our children overweight or obese. China was that way in 2012, 13%, and now they're up about where we are in the United States. And that's why I told that Minister of Health in Beijing back in 2012, I said, sir, if you don't change your lifestyle, I see a perfect storm. You have the same problem we have within 22 years. They're listening to me. Why did I go to China? Because they listened to me. Why they had this problem? As they said, because the globalization of unhealthy food and beverages, and because they've moved from an active to inactive society. And they're going to change that, and I want to help them change that.
I've got about 30 seconds before we take our final break, Dr. Cooper, but I just wondered, you said that China has been very receptive to having you come over there, and it's amazing what you've put there, and I know there's more to come in the years ahead, but I just wondered, other countries, Canada, Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Czechoslovakia, anybody else knocking on your door saying, you're incredible, come to our homeland?
At the break, we can talk about that, but we're negotiating right now with people in Dubai.
Are you really?
Yes.
No
very
kidding.
Actively. Right.
Dr. Kenneth Cooper is our special guest tonight. We've got just a few minutes left to see what lies on the horizon for the good Dr. Cooper. He, of course, is the founder and the director, the chairman of the Cooper Aerobics Center up there in Preston Road, and we'll hear some final thoughts when we come back.
Time to get back to the conversation at the Relationship Roundtable. It's the Scott Murray Show with Steve, Calvin, Trey, and Scott.
And the good Dr. Cooper is along as well as we head down to the top of the hour. We're delighted to have you on board. We're going to be here till 6 o'clock. We're talking about this incredible, well, I don't know it sounds like a small city, a miniature city that you put together over there in China. But it is just unbelievable, and I'm just most impressed the way the Chinese have opened their arms and said, Dr. Cooper, bring us your expertise. Bring us your knowledge. We need to change the lifestyle here. I can't believe how many people, millions of people, obese, and just young kids that you're talking about in China every single day.
It's dramatic to see what's happened. To give you an idea of what we're doing at the Cooper Health and Wellness Center in Nanjing, I had this summary sent by our top person over there just for the last week. They've been overwhelmed with having seminars since we opened up the 21st. They call it EMI. Think of this, Exercise Medicine Integration. We call exercise as medicine. They call exercise medicine integration for diabetes programs, for elderly population programs, for weight loss programs, for healthy holiday programs, fit to lead for corporations, and for safe marathon training. They have low back. A lot of people running marathons in China. They've had some deaths. I had to give a presentation on that, how to make marathon running safe. Low back pain, cancer, chronic disease, and pregnancy. Those are all seminars, and here is an outline of what they do the 3 days that they're there. It's amazing. Very sophisticated, following our guidelines exactly. What a wonderful opportunity to spread our concepts and ideas. I mentioned before the break, too, that people are really coming to us all over the world. I mentioned Dubai. I've been to Dubai once, and we're looking forward to perhaps going back this fall. We're in the negotiations with Johns Hopkins University. In fact, they have a program already over there. We may be joining forces with them. But while we were in China, we had a person from Dubai we've been negotiating with to come over for the grand opening in Nanjing. We had a gentleman from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He would give his right arm to get a Cooper Aerobics Center in Malaysia. I've got a standing offer from Saudi Arabia to get one, put one over there. And I'm scheduled to go to London. I was going to go just recently. We canceled out of that. I'll be going this fall. And they'd like for us at least put a fitness center at the Wentworth Country Club off the Country Club in London now. The whole world is opening to us because we get results. And it's hard to deny what's happened. Let me tell you one thing. You talked about things that have really surprised me over the years that have come true. I predicted that we needed back in 1970, we needed to have an objective measure of fitness, not just when I was back in 1984 when I was on Nightline, the television program, and they asked me to debate Henry Solomon, the cardiologist, New York City, wrote a book entitled The Exercise Myth. Dr. Cooper, you have nothing to prove exercise does anything to make you feel good. Everything to date is based upon questionnaire. People ask him, what are you doing with exercise? They give you the answer. They think you want, they exaggerate, don't remember, sometimes outright lie. And the correlation of what people say they do, whether they perform laboratory on the treadmill, is less than 0.1. On national television, 1984, I said, Dr. Solomon, you're right. I'm blowing you out of the water because I've been collecting data all these years on objective treadmill times. And the retest reliability coefficient is 0.9. If you go 15 minutes one day, a heart rate of 150, bring you back 3 days later, you'll go 50 minutes, heart rate 150, plus or minus 3%. So again, we've seen that. So I've taken this data now and proven that stress tests can be, number one, critically important for picking up disease that you don't pick up by resting EKG. Because the most common first symptom of severe heart disease is sudden death. Is the most common first symptom, really, of sudden heart disease, of a severe heart disease, is sudden death. And that's when we pick it up all the time with stress testing, when resting EKG is perfectly normal, and they have no symptoms. They have major coronary disease, and 3 or 4 times they come to the clinic, we pick up with a stress test, we pick up a serious disease, in the hospital the next day for bypass surgery. Happens at least 3 or 4 times a week. So back in 1970, I did my first stress testing in Dallas. Been doing the Air Force for years. I had to go before the Board of Censors because I was doing treadmill stress testing. Something was dangerous. This is 1970, fairly recently, as compared to 1949, 1952, in my years in medical school. I was able to prove that it wasn't dangerous. I wasn't censored. My wrist wasn't slapped. And the second person in town to have a treadmill stress testing was the chairman of the Board of Censors. But still, there was a worry about treadmill. We've done 245,000 treadmill stress tests now in 47. Never had a death for stress testing. But the real turnaround, it happened. I'm really proud of this because it happened the 20th of November in the prestigious medical journal Circulation, American Heart Association. They said that in conjunction with physical examination, if a physician does not measure aerobic capacity by time on the treadmill or by a bicycle, it's not a complete exam because aerobic testing is more important in predicting future coronary events than high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and cigarette smoking. And there were 283 references in that article, and 35 came from our center.
That's amazing.
That is a real turnaround.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. I've got about 1 minute for you, so if you can get your thoughts in this. I would just like to know, I mean, you're just sharp as a tack now, and at 86, seem to be in great health. You've always got Millie by your side, your wonderful wife, and I know you work with Tyler, your son, who's also an MD. And yet, I just wondered how you would like to someday, 50 years from now, when people say, Dr. Kenneth Cooper, boy, was he an iconic guy. Was he ahead of the times? How would you like to, what would you like your legacy to be?
If people improve their health and live longer, I say praise the Lord. I don't want to take any credit. I think my life has been divinely inspired. I want to give God the credit for everything. I'll make the point very clear, too, as we go off the air, that what a wonderful thing to have a son following in your father's footsteps. And he's board certified, I am, in preventive medicine. He's gone to Harvard. If I've gone to Harvard for getting a master's in public health. And he went with me to China, and you're going to learn a whole lot more about Tyler. He's 46 years of age. The age of the Aerobics Center is the age of Tyler Cooper, because he was born 8 days after I saw my first patient at the Cooper Clinic. You want to see the age of the Aerobics Center. But what a wonderful life we've had. Fantastic wife, fantastic kids, Berkeley and Tyler, and now we have 5 grandkids. And the Lord has blessed me with health, prosperity, and I just wish everybody could enjoy the quality and quantity of life I have.
30 seconds, Steve. Anything you'd like to say to Dr. Cooper?
Well, it's been amazing just meeting you. I mean, you're a legend. I grew up in Dallas. It's amazing. I want to ask you one quick question. Do you take a baby aspirin every day?
Yes, I take a baby aspirin every day, but I also take all my Cooper and B vitamins every day, too.
Okay.
That's a very, very important thing, but we don't have time to discuss that on this program.
We'll do it another time. How about you, Trey? A final thought for Dr. Cooper.
It was an honor to meet you, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. Scott, it's a real pleasure to be with you and be on your program.
Well, I tell you what, it's a real pleasure to have you here, and I hope you know that anytime you've got something like this coming down, you want to get in here and let the world know, hey, guess what? We're up to this, folks. You got open door. It's a done deal. You're one of the neatest people, as I said at the top of the show. I can name on one hand the people that I have the utmost respect for. People like a Roger Staubach, people like a Byron Nelson, people like, I remember meeting Jesse Owens when I was all of 20 or 21 years old and had a chance to do some things with him before he passed away. 4 gold medals in the 36 games, never got him because he was an African-American. Years later, but I mean, it's incredible stories. You are right with that company. So thank you so much for all you do and the lives and just the millions, I'm sure, millions of lives in your lifetime that you will have saved by simply sharing with the aerobics and the good eating habits and just being smart and staying in shape. It's made a difference. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Scott, and God bless you,
and
too.
As we always remind our listeners each and every week, live your life as a go-getter, but share your life as a go-giver. And Dr. Kenneth Cooper does that every single day. For Calvin, who's not with us today, he'll be back next week. For Trey and for Stephen, I'm Scott Murray. Good night, Texas.